everyone, this video is going to talk about how to use Excel to calculate things like the mean, median, standard deviation, and also a quick reminder of how to use Excel to do some of the graphing stuff that we have talked about. So I've got a data set here already in Excel. One thing I did mention in some of my other videos is how when you're working in my stat lab, if you click on the little box that will show up right beside a data set, you can say open directly in Excel. And so then it will just open the data set right in Excel so you don't have to worry about typing all the numbers in. But this is just some data I have here that I'm just using as an example. And so you can do this in a few ways. One is like if you just want to know the average or the mean, just go to any of the cells and click equals, and then you start typing average, and then you're always going to open a parenthesis and then highlight your data, and then close your parentheses and push enter, and that will give you your average or your mean. You can do the same thing for the median, just do equals and median, and then highlight your data. If you want to do standard deviation, you do equals STDEV is standard deviation, and that is for a sample. Standard deviation is how this one is set up, is what it will do. If you need the population standard deviation, you can do that another way, but typically we don't need that. So there's some of our data right there. We've got our average or the mean, we have the median, and we also have the standard deviation. So that may be all you need, and you might want to do it that way. But if you want to do it more like how the calculator does it, where it just gives you all of the statistics at one time, what you're going to need is this a data analysis tool. And so if you click on your data up here menu, you're probably going to notice, at least on mine right now, it's not there. It doesn't say data analysis. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to go to File and go down here to Options. And then we're going to click on Add-ins. And at the very bottom here it says Excel Add-ins, and we're going to say Go. And then it brings up this menu of different add-ins that you can put into your Excel program. And so we want the Analysis Tool Pack, and just say OK. And then if you noticed, it just showed up right here. So it's an add-on that you can have for free. It's already there. You just have to say that you want it to show up in your menu. So if I click on this, this has a lot of the things that we can use for our data analysis. So it talks about using a histogram here. You can do descriptive statistics, is what we're going to do in just a minute. But you also see this is where you can do your linear regression. And that's something you would be doing in Chapter 4. But if we go here to descriptive statistics, that's about the same as what the one variable stats is in the calculator. So we'll push OK, and then make sure your cursor is here flashing in that white spot, and you're just going to highlight your data that you want to find the statistics for. Down here, I usually always click that I want the output to be on the same page. And that's just so I don't end up with lots of Excel files or tabs open. But click the output range, put your cursor in there, and then just click anywhere on the page, and that's where the statistics are going to print out. And then make sure you click this box that says Summary Statistics, otherwise it won't do anything. So make sure you have that clicked and say OK. And then you will get this output. And so you can see it's going to be the same values we got over here, but it's just all at one time. So you've got the mean and then the median. It also gives you the mode, which is something the calculator doesn't typically give us. And then you've got the range, the min, and the max. And so all the information that you would need. Another thing it does give us is it gives us the variance, which the calculator doesn't give us. It usually just gives us the standard deviation. Remember that the variance is just the standard deviation squared. So if I had the standard deviation, I could square it, and that would give me the variance. But Excel just gives you both of them. So if you have a problem in my stat lab that asks specifically for the variance, then you can use that here, and that would be your variance. Now we also talked about creating histograms in Excel. So you can do that using the data analysis thing here and using the histogram, or the graph here that's shown as the histogram works in the same way. So if I highlight my data and I go up here to histogram and I click on it, then you see that it gives me this histogram chart. And so as it is, it looks okay, but if I want to change how many categories I have or how they're grouped, I want to left click on the numbers down here and then right click and choose this format axis. And that is going to open this menu over here. And what I want to do is the axis options, I want to go under here, I can go to the bin width. And what that's going to do is that is going to allow me to control how large the categories are. Like if I wanted to go by 2s or 5s or 10s. So say I wanted them to go by 5s, I would type in 5 and enter. And then you see my histogram changes. So now this value or these values go from about 1 to 6, 6 to 11, etc. If I want to change it again to say 3, I can do that, right? And so we talked about in this chapter how adjusting the categories for your histogram is going to make the graph look different. And depending on how many categories you have, you might get a better description of the data, right? So if this is probably too many categories right now. If I make it, maybe let's say we're going to group by 10. This is a pretty good view to show me that this is a very skewed distribution, right? It's skewed to the right. So most people, this one was some sort of mileage. I think I asked my students how far they traveled to get to class. And so this shows that most of my students travel between 1 and 11 miles to get to class. And then all the way down to I had one student that traveled 44 miles, so they were over here. But you can see that's a pretty skewed distribution, and so if we were describing it, we would say it was right skewed. But if I had too many categories on there, it can make it a little more difficult to kind of see that. Some other things you might want to do is you could add in a title. So to do that, I just click on it, and that's what you do with most of it is just click somewhere on the graph, and you're probably going to find what you want. But I could say this was daily travel mileage to school or something, whatever. And you can type that in up there. You can also, when you click here, you could go up to chart design, and if you want to add in like axis titles, like to show that this is mileage or this is frequency, whatever, you can choose those and you can get axis titles. The other option over here is just choosing how many categories you actually want. And you could choose this. The number of bins tells you how many categories you would have. So you could do that, or you can change it by doing the bin width here. The other thing we might want to do is when we have categorical data or qualitative data, maybe we want to make a bar graph or a pie chart. So what I want to do with that, if I don't already have my data organized in a frequency chart where, like in this one, it's just a yes-no question, but if I don't already have it organized where it says I had 15 yeses and 20 nos, then I need to kind of do 2 steps to get to the graph that I want. So I'm going to go up here to the insert, and the easiest way to get this into a chart is to go to the recommended charts, and then it's going to give you something based off of a frequency distribution. So what it did was, it calls this is called a pivot table or a pivot chart, but it's basically our frequency chart. So it's saying that you have however many no's and yeses. Now one thing I will need to do, I just noticed I hadn't done, on this one you actually need like a header here of what the category is. So say I asked students if they were full-time, okay? So I really actually need that before I create the graph. Otherwise, it's going to count that very first Y as like the category header, and then it won't really count it as a yes, so that can throw off your information. So now that I've done that correctly, let me go back here and choose that. All right, and now I get this, and this is better. So you notice on the other one, it said I had 31 yeses, but this one says 32, and that's because I didn't have a little header at the top. But anyway, once I get to this, I might like it. I might like the bar graph. I can change things here if I want to type in something. If I type something here, like if I want to rename it, I can do that once it's here. So if you want to change something about it, you can just type it in there. But if I want to do another chart, now that I have this one created, what I would do is I would go up here to Design, and move this here, and I'll go here to Change Chart Type. And that is where now, based on this frequency table, it's going to give me my different options for graphs. So now if I want to do a pie chart instead, I would just use the pie chart and say OK. And once we have the pie chart, you can see up here, they give you different designs that you might like. Some are just color changes. Some you can see they add in the percentages. You also can add in percentages by going over here to add chart element, and you can add your data labels where you have them inside or outside, or you have the little call out things. So however you want to have that. But this one looks pretty good. It tells me I did a count of full time, and maybe I want to change this and just say, are you a full-time student? And so then I know that I asked that question. Maybe somewhere I want to say, what my sample size was. Say I asked, because I had 50 people, right? I asked 50 people that. So maybe I want to include that information. But you can do all that just by clicking on it. But that's how you can go from using a bar graph to a pie chart when you have that qualitative data that's not in a frequency chart. Once you actually get the bar graph created, that was your recommended chart, then you can just go up here and do the change chart type, and then choose, whichever one that you want to have. All right. So that's just a few extra thoughts about how to use Excel. You can also do similar things using StatCrunch, and of course that's located inside the MyStatLab. There should be a link to it over on the left-hand menu when you're in MyStatLab, but you also can get to it by using the question help. Usually StatCrunch is listed in there, and it looks a lot like Excel. It has the columns and the rows. You just have to find, from the drop-down menus what you want it to do, but it's pretty user-friendly once you start looking around that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at angela.galloway@kctcs.edu. You can also look at my other lecture videos for some extra help on things in the calculator. I usually do those while I'm working through the lecture notes, but I don't always have Excel videos added in there for you to use. So I wanted to go ahead and update this video so that you could use it as you're working on some of your weekly reviews or just some of your homework. All right? So I hope that helps, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.